I wanted to put together a panel of leaders who are working in different markets around the world. Okay, so we're going to come out and have a discussion to talk with them about how to expand internationally, what differences there are in different markets around the world, and what lessons we could all learn from it. Because if your company has an opportunity for you to build outside of the country that you're in, and you're not taking advantage of it, you are leaving huge opportunity and huge contribution on the table. So I want you to be able to fully maximize the opportunity. So we have 6 leaders. Please welcome them to the stage. Andrew Eaton, Johnny Green, Danian Fire, Anthony Golay, Ada Caballero, and Lisa Grossman. Welcome them out. Okay, so let me just quickly summarize, and then I'm going to have, and then we're going to just get right into it, because some of you were just heard from, some of you have been heard from before. But Andrew works primarily in South Africa, correct?
That's right.
Johnny is built all around the world, but has a big emphasis in the Asian marketplace. Correct. Yeah. Danian is born in Germany, has lived in Italy, lives in Dubai, building all throughout Europe, and now heavily throughout the Middle East. Anthony has built extensively in Southeast Asia, specifically Australia, New Zealand. Ada has built in all the Latin American markets. And Lisa Grossman, I don't know how many countries you're operating in, but it's a lot.
Pretty much every continent, but right now, currently, North America and Asia, about half and half.
Half and half North America and Asia. So these people are very, very experienced, put in a lot of miles. If we added up all the frequent flyer miles from this panel, you guys would never pay for a ticket for the rest of your lives. These people have been on a lot of airplanes. So just make a quick introduction and just go down the panel and just introduce yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. Eric, thanks very much for having us up here. It's incredibly humbling to be up here. Andrew Eaton from South Africa. There somewhere. Been in the network marketing profession since 2011. Came to my first GoPro in 2013. Been back every year since. And it's an awesome experience.
Johnny Green, I'm from the great state of Kentucky. I've been in this industry for 15 years. I found my way to success, and it's been a blessing to help a lot of people.
Danian Fire, I'm 33 years old, from Germany, live in Dubai. Got to know network marketing when I was still in school, and very excited to be here.
Hey, Anthony Golay from Australia. Just a baby, 4 years in, I was a chiropractor and sold all our chiropractic centers a year ago, and just getting warmed up.
Good evening. My name is Ada Caballero, and I'm glad to be here. This is one of my dreams. Thank you for inviting me, and I apologize for my English accent, but I think the business help each other, and the money doesn't have language.
My name is Lisa Grossman. I started network marketing in November of '88, so it's 30 years now. And I'm starting to get the hang of it. And I suffer from TB, true believerism. I love it with a passion that knows no bounds. And do it all over the world and can't get enough of it.
All right. Fantastic. So I'm excited. I would like each of you to think about what advice would you give a person that would like to expand their business outside of their current market, whatever that market is. Let's say that the company is in the United States and they just opened up the UK, or they just opened up Mexico, or they just opened up some market, whatever that market is, and they're sitting here. What would you encourage somebody to do from your experience in order to help them open something up? Let's start with Andrew here and we'll go down.
So, Eric, I think the first thing is there's a caution here, firstly, and that is that when a new market opens up, the average person out there thinks that they can just quickly run in and make a killing. If I can be first in, we're going to build something huge there. And unfortunately, that's not the case. There's a lot of experience that comes in. I always like to tell my team, if you can't build in your hometown first, you're not going to be able to build internationally secondly. So the first thing I would always caution people is to make sure that you've got the skills, and the best place to hone your skills is in your hometown. But once you achieve those skills and you feel that you're ready to hit international, and you must remember it takes a lot of travel, and so you've got to have the leadership back home that you've set up to enable you to go internationally first of all. A lot of people go internationally too quickly, and their home business, which is where their bread and butter is, suffers as a result. So there's a lot of that caution to come in firstly. But once you are ready for it, what we do when we open new territories is we obviously start, we don't travel there immediately. We start with, I think when I spoke to you, the best way you put it actually in Australia was we throw a bit of spaghetti against the wall on social media. You start trying to connect with people in various cities in those countries. You might get one or two that start responding. You build a relationship the way you normally would. You then would get onto a couple of calls. What we do is we like to get them to set up a couple of home meetings on their side. You dial in from your side, and you build up a little core team of leadership in that particular country, or the city that you're going into. And only once you've got the core leadership team set up and they actually understand a bit of your culture, then only at that stage do we then suggest you start making travel arrangements and going out and having events. And you should never really be in that country for more than a couple of days, because then otherwise they don't value your time. So you're flying in, you're flying out, and you're getting those leadership to take charge in that city or that country.
And I'll bet you we're going to get lots of different opinions here from different experiences, and that's all great. It's all works from different perspective. I will tell you this: everybody, if your company launches in a new country, it's everybody's instinct to be there the very first day that they open, and usually it's disaster in that first 90 days or so when it opens. Product's not there. All the different regulatory things aren't necessarily taken care of. Translation stuff's not figured out. And there's usually an expectation gap. You get all the pre-launch orders that come in, everybody's excited, and then there's a dip. And that's when the pros come in, is after the dip. And then they grow it from there, and they let everybody else deal with the expectation gap. But I found that to be interesting over the years. Johnny, how about you?
The advice that I would give is, number one, find 5 people that don't look like you. You're building something outside of your home market, you're going international, you need to find 5 different people that don't look like you. And if you don't have anybody, if you can't think of anything, go to Google or go to some local restaurants that are foreign restaurants, like a Thai restaurant or a Vietnamese restaurant or whatever. Start building relationships. And one of my biggest tricks, Zumba instructors. If you go to Zumba and you go to the website, they have instructors all over the world, and they got a list. And so you can actually get information, get contact information, start building relationships if your company's going to a particular country.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a great question, honestly, and I would have so many things to say, but the most important things, first of all, I've always built organically into the markets. I've never said, oh, I like this country, let me go build there. That really doesn't work. It didn't work for me ever. I tried to do it when I was at the beginning stages of my career. Like every time, for example, there was a convention in a different country, like let's say Spain. And I'd be like, wow, that'd be cool to have a team in Spain. So let me fly 2 weeks earlier and, talk to everybody on the street. And that just is a really bad idea. I mean, maybe because I'm an introvert, maybe my wife could do it, but it just really doesn't ever work. Instead, I found that the markets that I didn't even plan at all to go into, and it's a lot of markets where we have serious volume. It always developed because out of an organic growth, which means somebody knew someone at some point that really knew what he was doing, and he was in that market. Now, if I would want to purposely build for a specific market, then I'd go with exactly what you say. Find whoever has the connections there in your hometown. So like, for example, the restaurants or whatever it is.
You can even use social, couldn't you?
Yeah, and you can do
go
it
on
online,
social and
of course.
find a group of
Yes.
people who are from some particular country in your hometown.
Yes.
And connect with those
And then
people.
they will have strong connections over there, maybe family or something like this. And let me say it this way, I think there's only two ways this is going to work. Either you have somebody abroad that really knows what he's doing, or you have an incredibly strong connection to that person, because if it's just anyone far at the beginning, usually with not a lot of support and a lot of challenges, you will lose them. So that's why rather build strongly locally, but think globally, as we always hear that, and then follow the leadership organically. That's my advice.
Yeah, we have business in 23 countries, and 22 of those are accidental. So it's just people who have known someone. We did have the opportunity to go pave the way into Asia, which I was grateful for you to advise me not to. So just waiting for the second run, so to speak. But yeah, same. If you do a post saying, hey, who do I know in Malaysia? You'll be surprised at how many people. There's only 6 degrees of separation. Next thing, you've got conversations going on. I think if people want to grow into Australia, there's definitely some caution there. We are very sensitive bullshit detectors. And so...
you think that's unique?
Not necessarily, but I think we do so if you come in with scripts and strategies, the word mate is very meaningful to us. So if you don't have the relationship, which I'm not saying is unique necessarily, but that tall poppy syndrome, people get cut down pretty quick.
Got it. Good to know.
Well, for me, I think it's no barriers. In every country, everybody wants to make money, but it's a challenger. But you need to prepare the mindset. Because people think if I go pioneer, everything is easy. It's not easy. But when you talk with the truth and you explain how to go over there, they're not afraid because they are prepared to what is coming. So for me, I think in every country, every people need to know about the MLM. So when they are hungry and you provide a company, they provide the utilities, money for pay the rents, they waiting and they working. And now we have a lot of tools to help like Zoom. And you prepare because it's the same. It's nothing different. You can do it here in the United States, you can do it in Mexico, you can do it in Europe, but you need to prepare first.
Love that. Lisa.
I think in network marketing, strength multiplies and weakness amplifies. And when you're going international, a lot of people look to international as a magic bullet that is going to cover a multitude of things they couldn't accomplish in a country where they speak the language and where the home office usually is, and where really they have the most advantages because all they're seeing is the disadvantages around them, which really aren't disadvantages at all. There is a lot to be said for being in a country where there are a lot of people doing what you're doing, even if they're not on your team. A rising tide floats all boats. For example, in North America, because I can only speak going from here to there, and I was building internationally living in Asia in 2004, so I've gotten to see quite a curve there. There are 10 million Mandarin speakers in North America. There are huge Russian enclaves in North America. There are huge Korean populations in LA. There are huge Vietnamese populations in LA. There are huge Spanish populations all over the southern United States and throughout Texas. I used to tell companies, you want to open 10 countries, translate your American website into 10 languages. Because people are not looking for conquistadors to come to their country for 2 weeks, recruit people in the language they don't speak, go back to their home country, and say, oh, you're doing a great job working with your people to make me money overseas. So if you want to go international and really grow a business, you have to be prepared to get on the ground and support it to grow it. And that costs money and it's very time consuming. So when they say think local, build local, think global, it's really the best way to do it, because if you build in a market with people that speak the language, they have family back home, they speak the language, they're going home to people that they know, love, and care about, who know, love, and care about and trust them, and then you're coming in as somebody on the back of their credibility and their trust factor to support the local growth and to support that country being able to achieve success for its citizens, not as some sort of foreigner coming in to exploit the marketplace, which is often how people running overseas like gangbusters for 2 weeks selling how rich they're going to get is often viewed. And that's why a lot of companies go in and are very quickly cheered when they leave, and leave quickly. So that's what I've got.
Excellent. So I want to ask a different question, and I'll answer the question myself to kind of get it started, and then we'll go down the row again. What's one thing that surprised you about building a business around the world that you kind of didn't expect? And I'll give you one as an example, and then you think about it and offer that to people. I kind of had this preconceived notion that if you went into a developing country, a country where maybe the average income was $500 around the world, and that was the average household income, and you had a $2,000 price of entry or a $1,000 price of entry, that you either had to deal with the very, very rich in that market or you wouldn't succeed. And I found out I was completely wrong. Because if a $500 monthly income was an average income, people could literally pool their money, come in, and go full time almost immediately in their network marketing business and make enough through selling their products and just the basic fundamentals of working a 40, 50-hour work week to be able to be more engaged from day one. So I didn't expect that. When I went to build, I built in 60 countries around the world. I didn't expect that, but I found it to be kind of an interesting asset, and it was a counterintuitive thing. So it surprised me. What's one thing that surprised you?
Funny enough, I'd pretty much say the same thing. You know, my second biggest team is in Zimbabwe. They're sitting there somewhere. And they're going through hyperinflation at the moment, much like Venezuela, etc. And, you know, I thought every country that we go into, you know, obviously culture is very important, Eric, but in every country, people have the same dreams and the same aspirations. We're all just people. And if we can paint the picture and show those people how they can achieve their dreams, people in countries like Zimbabwe, Venezuela, you'll find that people are very resourceful, and like you said, they'll pull their money together, they'll do what they need to do. So the myth that I found is, you know, we don't want to go into that country, people don't have money.
Well, some of these, if there's 30 units in a product package, they'll pull them out and sell one unit at a time. They're not selling a box. They'll sell one unit at a time, you know, to somebody door to door or whatever they need to do in order to be able to create an income. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and that was the biggest myth, that we only had to go for countries where the income level was that high.
Yeah.
But you can really go into poor countries and the people are hungry. They're really hungry.
All right. Johnny, what about you?
I think what surprised me the most was, because I've lived in the Philippines, I've lived in Jamaica, built in a few different countries. But what surprised me the most was the work ethic and how hungry the people were in the different countries. And also, what surprised me was the percentage of people that knew about network marketing or that were engaged in network marketing. In some countries, it was as high as 20 to 23%. And one thing I'm going to leave you guys with, that was my final surprise, is never underestimate the value of a taxi driver. Because if you're going to a foreign country and you got a taxi driver to speak English, the taxi driver knows where everything is at. Everything. And so if you play your cards right, the taxi driver can indirectly bring you some leads to your business or some potential customers.
Nice. Yeah, what surprised me is something that actually shouldn't be a surprise, but to me is just how different people are in all those different countries. Like how culture has really formed all of us a certain way. And it starts with simple things, like, for example, within Europe, I mean, I'm German, And then my wife's Italian, and yeah, I get it, it's a different country, but I wouldn't really expect there to be so much differences. But when I built in Italy, it's completely a different day than when I built in Germany.
For
in Germany,
example?
for example, everything's super structured. If we have the meeting at 6 o'clock, well, it's probably going to start at 6 o'clock. If it's 6:08, some people start getting upset, like, why are we not starting on time? What's wrong here? And do you even take this serious and stuff like that? If we do the meeting at 6 o'clock in Italy, it depends on if we're north or south, but the more south we go, it could start at 7, it could start at 7:30. It could start with like an aperitivo, which is kind of like a dinner before dinner, and it doesn't even start with a presentation. If you go into, let's say, Egypt, and we say the meeting starts at 6, well, it's a general concept that there could be a potential idea of thinking about there was a meeting when people are still at home at 6, and we're start at 9. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It's insane. We had a big event, like a kickoff. It was about 7,000 people, something like this arena. And we were supposed to start at, I will never forget that, 4 o'clock. And we met up with the leaders in our suite. It was like, I said, you know what, let's meet there at, 3:30 and then we'll go down. So they came at 3:30, and then some of them came at 4 and some others came at 4:30, and I was getting, nervous. Then they ordered some room service. I was like, guys, isn't the arena supposed to be at 4? Oh yeah, they're down, it's fine. So we ended up going down there at 6:30. And everybody was just happy, it was great. And we started 3 hours late, It's just normal, it's crazy.
I couldn't handle that. My experience, I thought to build in cities would be the focus, but what I've found is in regional, rural areas where people are a little bit more hungry, people are more personable, has been easier. And then I think the other thing, once cultural differences are aside, and you do get down to a person's story, just how alike we all are, and we all are driven by values. And if you take the time to be curious and ask the same questions, when it all comes down to it, we are all very similar. We're all one. We're all, like you said, whether it's for the money, but we're all looking for something more, for a lifestyle.
So for me, the most surprised me is when you go to the stage and start talking about the business and use the same words in Latin, but the expression is different. So I need to be careful what I say because some words change and it's so funny for me. But the one I see in the business, everybody is coachable. As soon you are the first teach with the example. If you don't have the example, nobody follow you. But if you do something and they see, they commitment to follow you. And for me, it's more easy because my language is Spanish. So for me, it's no our problems them. For me, in English, is my big challengers. And also, I never went to the school to learn in English, but I do an English class also for teaching. That's why I say, if I can say with my mouth, I say with my hands.
You go, girl. We're American. We don't speak two languages. You're doing great. Biggest surprise. How much our opinions about other countries are formed by schools and things and how so
Movies.
off they are.
Yeah,
when I
movies
went
and
overseas, this is
TV.
my big shock. In network marketing around the world, women do the majority of the volume. I think we all know that. And I came up 30 years. So when I started, men were the most of the top checks and they dominated the stage. But I'm from modern America. We're the most progressive country on earth. So I figured if the machismo factor here was high, it's going to be higher overseas. And nowhere was it going to be worse than probably in China because of everything we were taught about China. Out of all the cultures I've operated in around the world in network marketing, the place where I would say women are leading the way and really dominate the stage and was the Chinese culture. That blew me away. When I went over there in 2004, I couldn't believe that all the stories on stage, all the big checks, everybody, pushing the business in China and in Taiwan was all women. And that blew me away because I did not expect it. I used to sit in the audience and watch all these men in the audience and all these women doing it. I'm going, I need to move here. This is a really cool place. And it's really still that much. John, you know it. Not Japan and some other markets, but that's China. That blew me away. That was the surprise.
Cool. Let me ask a question about style.
Go the other way so I don't have to be like eighth.
Because, like, Johnny, you don't look Asian.
You don't think so?
No, I mean, well, you don't look Malaysian. You know what I mean? And how many, what markets did you work in over there?
Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, Hong Kong, Korea.
Okay, just all those.
Japan. You're in Japan.
So you're coming in as this American dude. Are you like an oddity? They want to take pictures with you because you're like this rare thing that showed up. And I ask this question to all of you because you all go into markets that aren't your natural habitat, and you're coming in to build rapport. And I do the same thing. I travel around the world. I speak in all these different markets. Many of them don't speak any English, and we deal with translations. And people have told me that I relate pretty well, generally. So I haven't, and I don't know how much of it's brand and how much of it's everything else, but how did you figure out how to relate in Egypt not being Egyptian for Danian, or in Vietnam not being Vietnamese, or whatever, in any market? How did you figure out the way to relate and lead when you weren't living there and you weren't from there? How did you do it?
Good question. So the way I started building off Asia, in the beginning, I didn't recommend anybody to do it that way. And what that was, I would go to a country, have enough money for a ticket or whatever, and if I didn't sponsor anybody, then I wasn't going to have enough money to come back. So, like, you're supposed to get a round-trip ticket when you go to, certain countries, but I figured out a way around it, trying to beat the system. But anyway, long story short, so I'm out here in these countries, I'm cold market, just meeting a bunch of random people. It was a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. When I started figuring out some things in Asia, I started in the countries where they had some darker people, such as the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And after grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding, eventually I came across someone who knew a lot more than me, who was an expert, who was a networker, but I didn't come across them directly, like Dr. Jenny Chong. I don't know if she's here, but Dr. Jenny Chong helped that transition. She helped translate. She showed me, hey, look, this is not how you do it. This is what you do. This is how you do Malaysia. This is what you do. You have to learn how to listen. Listen and silent. Those two words have the same letters. And so you have to learn how to listen. You have to learn how to be silent. And then you have to learn how to take somebody in that particular country and highlight them so they can attract more people that look like them. And I think that was the biggest key. And once I figured that out, every country I went to, the story wasn't about me, it was about them. And then once I gave them the edification, they came back and gave the edification back to me. And edification is so powerful when building an international business, because when you're walking around in a country, like in the Philippines and all these other countries, especially Taiwan, people wanted to come up and take pictures, right? But they thought I was an athlete or American or whatever the case was. But it was some countries where I went to, and I experienced some racism and things of that nature. But when they found out that I was from America, and they found out I was an American, and I was in the network marketing industry, the whole thing changed. And the reason it changed is because of the edification that somebody in a local market had given. And after that, the rest was history.
Fascinating. Danian, how about you? You're building now, you're having this new explosive growth throughout the Middle East.
Yeah.
What are the countries?
The countries are, so obviously Egypt, and then it's UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Palestine, different markets. It's even like political, like you don't even know how that's supposed to be categorized, because
Right.
anyways, it's interesting. So it definitely, you're always different then. Like I'm different then when I go there, and it's interesting.
How so? How are you different?
Well, anybody of us would be different if you're not from the market. I mean, so the first thing I do is I'm always super careful, and not like hesitant or anything. I'm just aware of what's going on, and in terms of respect, I really respect everybody.
Is that a key word? Just if you're
respect is
just
super
period?
important, I think, because it's just something like it's a new territory, and of course, in our case, if we come over as leaders, there's always a lot of. I mean, immediately you walk in the first moment. Everybody wants to take pictures, and oh my God, and look at there, but it's when you then in conversation with the people that you're actually working with the leaders or everything, I always treat everybody very respectfully to kind of learn as I go on how things work, how they communicate with each other. Like giving you a simple example. The way you say hello to someone, okay? That's an easy thing. And here in the US, we sometimes make a joke like I come and I want to give 2 kisses because it's kind of like how we do it. And then people say, oh yeah, you're right, you're from Europe. Well, turns out in the Middle East, you don't even give your hand to a woman. And if you do that, then you're like, it's really bad. So what I learned is, every man, you give the hand, you say hi. Every woman, you say hi. You don't even move anything. If she reaches the hand, then you reach the hand, but you're not doing it first. So that's just some of the stuff. Or, one time, like just giving you a funny example, we were like in the meeting doing something. It was really cool, and there was this one girl, and I was like, "Well, that's awesome, high five." And she's like, "No." I was like, "Why not?" I said, "Oh, okay, she can't be touched." Like I didn't even know. Like I was just trying to high five, So I was like, "Okay, interesting." So it's different, and but you learn that as you go if you're very respectful. And last thing I want to say. Some of the countries, it's, if I was by myself, it would probably not work at all. But because of network marketing, you're always related to some local person that's really strong, that has the influence. It's usually very smooth. I mean, even in tricky places or something, it's very smooth. They know everybody. They know how to do it. So as long as you have the people with whom you're working, it's going to be great, and you're in for an experience for sure.
Well, one thing that I've been around the world now, and it's just growing up, middle-class kid in Minnesota, a big deal was getting on the first airplane. And if you ever went any place, it was like driving to see Grandma and Grandpa in California or something like that. And when you go to Mexico, or you go to Colombia, or you go to Australia or New Zealand, or to Southeast Asia, or to Europe, or the Middle East, it expands your mind. I recommend that everyone here set an intention to get your mind and your business expanded. It's a big world with incredible people, and the richness of your life and of your relationships will be a reflection of that. Of those, I can go to any country in the world, and I could reach out to a handful of real friends in those countries, and connect and hang out. That's such a gift that our profession gives. But I'm grateful for all of you. But what I'd like each of you to do is just maybe take 1 minute each, and just offer the people here a word of advice, encouragement. Offer some wisdom, whatever it is, for these people. How many people would like to have a stronger business internationally? All right, fantastic. Offer them some advice. Start wherever you like. Lisa, how about you? You can start first.
Be of service to people. Everything you've heard on this stage translates internationally. It really does. Language can be a barrier. So start with countries where people speak English, if English is your spoken language. Leadership not on the ground can be a barrier. Start where your country's operating so that things are there to support you. But really, what I should have said before is today with Zoom, that helps a lot in supporting the markets, but you still have to go there. If you want your business to grow internationally, I come back to starting in your backyard. Everybody knows somebody everywhere. I started my business internationally 20 years ago or whatever it was with a friend who was from Taiwan, moved here when he was 13, and I was doing opportunity meetings in Southern California for 600 people that were translated into Chinese before I ever left the US. By the time I got there, I had 10,000 people in my group and I was a visiting celebrity. So it doesn't matter how you get there, it's still person to person to person to person. And I go back to Johnny. If you don't want a business where everybody looks like you, go out and start meeting all the people that don't look like you. You'll find that if you can get past your differences in how you look, that your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, the things you want for your children, the things you're afraid of from yesterday, and your fears about tomorrow are pretty much the same as your hopes and dreams will be. And just connect on a human level and say, where in the world can we make a difference together?
Love it. Ada.
Well, for me, to you is my experience is start the business, working hard, with your heart, serve it first, got values, and don't be afraid to open in other countries because they needed our culture. They needed our business. So don't be afraid to open because it's the same. Don't see barriers. For me, it's the world, it's one only. You are person, I'm the same person, and everybody needs to this kind of business because over there in all the world, they need it. Not everybody has a diploma, and for me, the diploma in this moment, we are MLM worker. So for me, this business, they need the world hear about us, and GoPro for me is a tool also. Because in here, before, when I started in MLM, they fight each other. They try to, this is my best. No, here is best. No, and here, everything is like one. It's funny because over there outside, they fight each other. But in here, if more people bring here people, it's the same in the world. It's the same. Some people die hungry for grow up. So for me, it's no barriers. For me, you need to go over there. And I know it's a challenger because it's not easy. But if you think it's easy, you are fail before to start. But if you think in your mind it's easy, but you need to be prepared for the challenges that you assume when you start the business. And I know for my experience, they in love when they change their life, because this is the most important. When you transmit the ideas, when you teaching by the example, it's easy. So this is what I think. So don't be afraid to open the world.
I just think vision is so important, that you hold a crystal clear vision for what it is that you want. I sat in the audience 2 years ago looking up to this guy, like with big eyes and jaw dropping. And so when the panel came out, I'm next to him. It's like, oh my gosh. And I think we have the power to create whatever we want. And so, if you're going to have an international business, don't go anywhere once unless you plan to go back. Because, the first time it's just really sprinkling the seeds, see what sticks. I just did 20 events in 20 days, 20 different venues across Canada. And it was the most humbling experience because you literally, I don't like staying in the hotels. If a team will put me up, I'm in there. And you get to play with their kids and wrestle with them and really see what that family's going through and feel the struggles. And I think it gets you humble. It gets you to really associate to what their pains are, what their values are. And then, if their visions become your visions and you can hold that space for them, regardless of where they are in the world. So that's my jam.
Love it. Damien, how about you?
I think little steps consecutively done lead to a massive result in the future. And that, keeping that in mind, it should remind us that sometimes we feel that, the impatience, that we always want to grow faster, we want to do things immediately, big and everywhere and everything. But I think that it's very, very important to do what you do, and to do it really well, and to do it really focused, and to do it really dedicated and daily where you are, and having that vision, but keep building and keep building and keep building and keep getting better. And after all this time in all these countries, I can say that it's always it's the easiest to build at home. That's the crazy part. I still think that after all this time and after all these countries, it's the easiest to build at home. So and also I heard what you said. You must be prepared to be able to spend a lot of money if you want to build international. And so you need to make money first. You need to make money first. I mean, obviously, there's always this example, and I'm highly impressed by what you did when you said on how you built. But for me, I realized that it's always a lot of money that everything costs, starting with the tickets and the expenses and the support and the situations you got to handle. And unexpected, that's the biggest word. Unexpected situations, lots of them in all colors you wouldn't even imagine. So I think you have to build strong first where you are, really become this leader, really become strong, really learn, so that when you have the chance one day to support and to travel, to really be able to shine the light, and having lived through the situations, at least as much as you can anticipate them, yourself first, so you can be that upline, you can be that support that people need. And I don't want to disencourage anyone from going international. No, I want to encourage you, but just the right way. Work on yourself every day, get stronger, get more powerful, work on your discipline. And if you do all of that, there is no way you can stop this business. You can't. So if you become unstoppable, your business will, and it'll eventually spread all over the world.
The advice that I would give, the first thing is posture and confidence. You have to be confident and you have to have posture, because when you're doing the meetings or when you're sitting down with someone, they're going to drill you. The first time I ever did a meeting in Asia, the meeting I had, I didn't know how big the people were. And they were just asking me question after question after question. And it lasted about 30 minutes. But long story short, at the end of the meeting, I would talk to someone that gave me feedback, and I did horrible. Like, I absolutely did terrible. And they said I went straight into business. I didn't ask about their family or anything like that. So you have to be able to connect with the people. You have to make sure you're confident, and you also have to have your posture. It's got to be on point, because that will get you and take you a long way. So know your stuff. The second thing, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care how successful you are, never, ever, ever be afraid to ask for help. And you would be surprised at how many top income earners that come to these events. And they're in different companies. They're never going to leave their company, but they reach out to other top income earners and ask, hey, how are you doing in this market? Like Lisa Grossman in Thailand, we met at the mall. It was the craziest story ever, but I was lost in Thailand. I was failing, and she gave me some advice on how to build the Thailand market. She said, you need to connect with this person, you need to connect with this person, and this is how you do it. So you have to ask for help, and you have to be willing to give advice and help people as well.
So I think when you're building internationally, relationships are even more key. If you're building in your hometown, relationships are just as key. But if you lose a relationship, there's someone down the road that you can go and replace with. If you're going to spend the money, and Daniel, I think you said it's incredibly expensive to launch and to go international. If you don't have a strong enough relationship with the people that you're going across to see, and to help launch, that can be a very expensive mistake if the relationship isn't strong enough and you do the wrong thing. So what I always do is make sure that the relationship is solidified before for quite a while in advance before I go overseas. And once that happens, the next thing, of course, would be to make sure that you've got that travel budget. I think the biggest mistake most of us make is because we get that romantic notion that we want to go international. I've learned over the last couple of years that it's incredibly costly. So that budget is important. And once you've got the relationship with the people that you're there with, it's exactly as you're saying, Johnny. It's to ask them to help you. You might be their upline, but they understand their culture more than you do. So I'm going to use your example a little bit differently. I haven't built in the East yet, which is a vastly different culture. But I've got, I've been to Australia, I've been to Zimbabwe, I've been to many countries, and even though it's more Western over there, there are still subtleties in the way you need to build there, and or the way you need to speak to people over there. So it's very important to leverage off the trust that you formed with the people that you're going to build there with, so that they can tell you exactly how to behave in the various meetings. Because that little subtlety, which is okay in your country, could be a make or break in a different country.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got value from this. Please give this panel a big round of applause. And I hope you go grow a big, huge international